Today we are going to be talking about the Scream franchise. Hello, Sydney. It's a fucking shit show! What you think you see, what you think you hear, that's what it's about. Mood and atmosphere. No, it's fucking garbage. It's garbage. Mood and atmosphere. Now that I really like. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I want to see. Hey folks, how you doing? Dave McRae here. Yes, that's right. Today I want to talk about Scream. Now I know many of you guys are huge Scream fans of the franchise, fans of Ghostface. Many of you have been wanting me to talk about Scream on this channel. Now don't take that as I take requests, because I don't. It's nothing personal. It's just I'm all about quality over quantity. And I don't want to set expectations and take requests, because then I have all these things I will have to talk about that I may not want to talk about. And I want to deliver the best possible videos that I can to you about whatever it is that I'm talking about. So it's nothing personal, but I don't take requests. But I do know a lot of you have been wanting me to talk about Scream, and I haven't, not for any real particular reason, but I think it might have been because I wanted to watch the movies again before I did. And a couple of months ago, around Halloween time, I actually sat down and I watched Scream 1, 2, 3, and 4 back to back to back. Well, not quite. I mean, I think it was over the course of a couple of days, but I certainly did that. And I had already seen them all, but I wanted to brush up on it because it had been only a couple of years, I think, since I saw Scream 4, but it had been a long time since I had seen the original 3, the original trilogy, so to speak. So I wanted to brush up on it. And my thoughts and feelings about Scream and the franchise and Ghostface haven't really changed since watching all 4 movies. I still sort of feel the same way I do about Scream as I did prior to watching them all again. And that is essentially, I'm a big fan of the first Scream. Now, I don't think it's amazing or anything like that, or one of the, oh my God, but certainly when it came out in 1996 when I was 17, I remember it very well. I didn't have an opportunity to see it in the movie theater, but I remember my buddy Bruce did, and I remember he came over to my house and he was like, dude, you got to check this out. It's Wes Craven, it's Scream, it's kind of fun, it's new, here's what it's about, it's really cool. And of course, I was a big Wes Craven fan from A Nightmare on Elm Street, and also from The People Under the Stairs. I'm a big People Under the Stairs fan. So if you guys haven't checked out that early 90s Wes Craven film, I highly recommend it. Really cool, really kind of weird, but really totally awesome shit. I love it. But unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to go see it in the movie theater. So I actually watched it on VHS several months later. And I really liked it. I liked Scream a lot because I liked, at that time, it was fresh, it was new, it was a different take on it. What Kevin Williamson wrote was very spoofy, but he didn't quite go all the way to spoof territory. I mean, it's very clear that Scream is not making fun, poking fun at a lot of the cliches and tropes from the horror genre, which is that's the novelty of Scream. That's why it was so fun to watch, because they were almost breaking the fourth wall, but not quite breaking the fourth wall, if you know what I mean. Like, certainly wasn't scary movie territory, right? Which, by the way, was the original title for Scream, was going to be Scary Movie. But they changed it to Scream. I could go into the whole thing about that, but I'm sure you Scream fans already know that. So no, like it wasn't quite that spoof territory, but it was kind of poking fun at it. And it was really cool to see a movie like this, but still it's taking itself seriously enough that you can get lost in the horror story of what's going on. You buy that this isn't just total comedy or spoof. There is a horror element here and an aspect to it, and it was a lot of fun. But the novelty of what Scream was, why Scream works, the trick and the formula of what made Scream, the first one from 1996, work so well, kind of grew tired for me as soon as I watched the sequel. Now, the sequel's not bad. It's certainly better than 3, although there's certain things about 3 that I like, but 3 as a whole, once they kind of went off into that house and it was just really, it grew tired. Because you have to keep this game up, this spoofy game up about Scream. And it's kind of like, how many more cliches can you do? How much can you recycle this and keep it up before you're just turning it into a very serious horror movie? Because that's like, it felt like they were trying to keep up that wink, wink, nudge, nudge to the audience in the subsequent sequels, but it wasn't as fresh. Because, well, we know what you're doing. We know that we're not going to know who the killer is, but the killer is one of us, but we're not going to know who it is, and it's probably going to end up being the mom or the dad. And the way they tied in everything, like the way they looped it all around to, Loomis's mother and this, it was just kind of like, really? And then the brother that, it's just, it really felt contrived to me. It really did. The first Scream is great as its own thing because it was, it was fresh for its time. It was new and it was different. And that wink, wink, nudge, that was kind of fun, right? But like I said, they kept it still serious enough that you could get lost in the horror aspect of the narrative. But the sequels, although I found 2 not bad, by the time I got to 3, I was tired of it. I was tired of the novelty. I was tired of the gimmick. I was tired of what this is, right? Now, you fast forward 10 or so years later to Scream 4. Well, okay, it worked better than Scream 3, and there was enough time in between that the novelty had worn off, so to speak. We'd forgotten all about it. And when you look at what Scream 4 was and what Scream 3 was, Scream 3 came out at a time when there was no social media, right? There were no smartphones. The internet, for all intents and purposes, was still relatively in its infancy. I mean, Scream 3 came out in the year 2000, okay? I had only had my email address for like a year at that point. I was still in college. So, I mean, it was a long time ago. And the world, in terms of technology and how we communicate and how we socialize, had changed so drastically between Scream 3 and Scream 4. So it almost felt like, oh, we can do it again. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, enough time has gone by and the world has changed so much in terms of how we communicate and technology. And now we have social media. Now we have smartphones. And oh, imagine a smartphone to call. Hello, Sydney. Oh my God, we can use smartphones and we can use, and how we can social. And it just felt like now it's like what's old is new again kind of thing, but with a different sort of twist on it. And I get it. I totally get it. And it's not that they didn't use some of the same tropes and cliches and stereotypes that they had in the past. I'm not saying that Scream 4 is like a technology-based movie. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there are certain things they could utilize about the pop culture today in Scream 4 that felt fresh and new, right? It felt sort of, oh, we can do this, but we can do it this way, and we can use this device instead of that device, and you hadn't thought about that before, or whatever the case is. So it just felt a little more, but to be fair, it kind of felt, I enjoyed it better than I did 3, but that was only because it was nice to revisit these characters again. You become emotionally attached to Sidney Prescott. You become emotionally attached to David Arquette's character. You become emotionally attached to Courtney Cox's character, right? I mean, it felt kind of cool to revisit these characters again and see where they are 10 plus years later. And that's kind of fun. That's always fun. So when enough time goes by, there's that nostalgia train that you get on and that you enjoy, but that doesn't necessarily mean in and of itself that it's a good movie. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't mean that, but that alone is not the indicator of whether or not it's going to be good, right? So there is that psychological component to it that you have to keep in mind that, well, I enjoyed Scream 4 better than I did 3, but that also could be because enough time had gone by, I hadn't worried about it, and it was nice to revisit these characters that I did enjoy, and so I'm enjoying that aspect of the movie. But when I watched Scream 4 again more objectively, I was like, it's okay. Like when you move the nostalgia over here and you push it aside and you imagine if this movie had come out maybe a year or two after Scream 3, and let's say that, just the story aspect of it, I mean, certainly not using of cell phones and things like that. Or smartphones, I should say. It is what it is. I mean, it's the gimmick of what Scream was smart. It was smart. but it works best, in my opinion, as a one-off because the gimmick is so ingenious in some ways. Not that nobody else could have come up with it, or not that it hasn't been done, that thing hasn't been done before with other things. I just mean, oh, that's kind of cool. That's kind of a cool way to do it, right? You kind of spoofify it. That's right. That's a word I just made up. You spoofify it a little bit without going too far. You kind of poke fun at yourself, but you still kind of make it serious, and it's kind of fun. But you can't make a fucking series out of that. Because eventually you're going to lose the gimmicky aspect of it. And all of a sudden it's going to have to be like really serious horror or because it's just the gimmick gets tired. It gets really, really tiring, in my opinion. Now, in terms of Ghostface in and of himself, I can't say I feel the same way about Ghostface that I do, Freddy Krueger or even Jason Voorhees and certainly Michael Myers. You guys know why I like Michael Myers the best, of course. I've talked about that ad nauseum on this channel in terms of the anonymity of his backstory and the mystique and the mystery and the unknown, and I could go on and on and on. When it comes to Ghostface, when I see the Scream mask or the Ghostface mask, and of course I'm talking about the one from the movies now, I can appreciate what the character has done for horror pop culture. I certainly can acknowledge that. Okay, I can say that yes, in the mid to late 90s, this became an iconic mask in its own right for, in some cases, a new generation of horror fans. And I can appreciate that. I recognize what that symbol has done. But Ghostface in and of himself is not a real person. There is no such thing as a guy named Ghostface or one guy who's Ghostface, right? There were a bunch of people that were Ghostface. So Ghostface, in some respects, doesn't exist. An actual person or an entity is Ghostface. No, he doesn't exist. And it's not like Pinhead from Hellraiser or Leprechaun from Leprechaun or Jason from Friday the 13th. There is no Ghostface. Anybody can be Ghostface. So in that respect, that sort of, for me, loses its cachet when anybody can be Ghostface. That there isn't one person that I can become attached to the mystique and the mystery that surrounds this one sort of individual or whatever it is. That kind of brings it down for me. But at the same time, maybe on the flip side of the coin, that's what brings it up for you, that anybody can be Ghostface. No, that's what it does. Anybody, I can put it on, and there, whatever the hell that was, I don't know. But I think you know what I'm saying, right? So I understand that. But for me, when I look at the Jason Voorhees mask, or when I look at the Michael Myers mask, or when I look at Freddy Krueger's face, and then I look at Ghostface mask, I certainly can, like I said, appreciate what it's done and what it symbolizes. But it had Scream been one movie, 1996, that was it. And I look at the Scream mask. Yeah, I think it would have a lot more cachet for me. It would have a lot more impact. I'd go, oh, because it's almost like it almost plays out then like, oh, it's that real life scenario. Like, I can get lost in the what if that actually happened kind of thing, where I was like, oh, like imagine, oh, that's that symbol from those murders that happened in that small town. And it becomes sort of like, wow, iconic in its own right because there was only one movie. So it's that eerie symbol of that one horrific event that happened in this small town. You know what I mean? That's how I kind of feel about it. Whereas now it's kind of like, especially when you get into Scream 2 and there's, they introduce Stab and the Stab movies and they carry that into Scream 3 as well, right? And it's just kind of like, it loses its impact for me, okay? It no longer really becomes scary necessarily. It's just, oh, that's the costume from Scream, and it's scary in its own way. I mean, certainly if I woke up in the middle of the night and I saw that standing in my doorway, I would, you know what I'm saying? But in the big picture, it's kind of like, yeah, it lost its luster, let's just say, in terms of impact for me. So, that's kind of how I feel about the Scream movie franchise as a whole. I don't really have a lot to say on it beyond that. I mean, I could go really deep, but I really have no interest in doing it. I like the first Scream. I think it's the best one out of the series. I think the others were completely unnecessary because the first one has a complete beginning, middle, and an end. And of course, we know why they made another one, because it was a surprise hit in around Christmas time, I think it was, 1996. I get it, totally understand it, but it was unnecessary, and the gimmick and the novelty and the formula of what made Scream so cool for me, wore quite thin and wore off very quickly as the sequels went on. So that's kind of how I feel about it. My name's Dave McRae. Comment below and let me know your thoughts. What do you think of the Scream franchise? What do you think of what I had to say? Do you agree with what I had to say? Now, keep in mind, I'm talking about the Scream movies, not the Scream television series. I haven't seen the television series, and I know it's really good. You got to check it out. I really have no interest in seeing it, okay? Maybe I will sometime down the road, but that's why I didn't talk about it here. But comment below and let me know your thoughts on the Scream movies. I would love to know. If you want to follow me on Facebook, you can at facebook.com/manythingsdavemcrae. That's where I tend to post in the meantime and in between time, and I'm not posting here. The link is in the description, as well as links to all my other juicy stuff in terms of Patreon, my merch store, IMDb, my website, Twitter. It's all down there. Check it out when you have some time. So, that's all I got to say. Hello, Sydney. Talk to you guys soon. Cheers.